Hey everybody, how's it going? Stoud Man coming back at you once again, and today I am coming on Halloween dressed up as none other than, I don't know, can you tell? Maybe this will help you. No? No? Well, Market Zero! Okay, maybe that'll help. Because the thing is, I did my best to look like Walter. I did my best to look like Walter Subject from The Big Lebowski. And I think I kind of sort of pulled it off. But, yeah, I also, these glasses, the problem with them is that it also kind of makes you look like Hunter S. Thompson in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Well, played by Johnny Depp. But yes, it makes you kind of look like Hunter S. Thompson, right? So I almost kind of look like Hunter S. Thompson, but I'm going for a Walter look. Either way, I'm not here to talk about that today. I'm actually here to talk about the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, some of the most controversial Halloween movies of them all. Some of the most controversial horror movies out there, in fact. And the reason I want to talk about them is because of that, and I kind of wanted to tell everybody why they were wrong. I know so many people are going to immediately just, nope, clicking away. I get that, right? I get the immediate desire to do that, but if you haven't already done that, I highly, I would beg you to stay just to hear my thoughts on it, because I'm not going to say that people are stupid for not liking this or something like that. Or at least I'll try to abstain from that kind of stupid commentary, because it is stupid commentary from myself to just say, well, you're just stupid because I don't agree with you. Like, that's not right, man. That's not cool. I'm going to try not to do that. You know, as you can see, I got my delicious drink here, and I just kind of want to go over some of the reasons that I actually enjoy the movie. Because the thing is, I like the movie for a lot of the reasons that people tend to not like the movie for some reason. I don't know why people dislike the movie for these reasons, but the same reasons that they dislike the movies are the reasons that I like them. So I kind of wanted to go through some of those. And what better way than to do a review? I just finally got done watching them for the year with my good friends there in Isaac and Skinslip, and also with Bluto 1992. Some of you may know Bluto 1992, some of you may not, but yes, we all hang out quite frequently, and we all watched Halloween and Halloween 2 together, the Rob Zombie duology, I guess you could say. And I have to say, I think we all of us together enjoyed watching it together, and we all enjoyed the movies in at least a certain light. We all found flaws with the movies. We all thought that there were problems with it, but overall, everyone who was in that group together watching the movies really dug them and really enjoyed the hell out of them. And I can see why. I liked them the first time I saw them, and then this time around, I loved them even more. There was so much more that I picked up on this time around as opposed to last time around. So, yeah, I think there's a lot there. There's a lot in the Halloween Rob Zombie movies that is actually really fucking good. And that's why I don't necessarily get the hate. So, with the first Rob Zombie Halloween movie, with the Halloween, right? The problem that I have with the commentary about it from people, from not just any people, mind you, but I'm talking about commentary from, like, John Carpenter himself. We heard recently from John Carpenter, at least a month or two ago, that supposedly he thought Rob Zombie was a fucking moron or something. He was saying some shit about Rob Zombie, but if you actually listen to the discussion that he was having with these people about the movie, what he was saying is that Rob Zombie said something in the special features or something like that, in one of the featurettes on the Blu-ray or DVD or whatever of Halloween about John Carpenter, and the thing that he had said about John Carpenter wasn't true, and John Carpenter took issue with that, and he was upset about that. In terms of whether or not he liked the movie, he felt like the first movie stood alone on its own quite well, and that the first movie gave Michael Myers a more of like a mythic quality to it. I'm paraphrasing, so don't quote me, don't get me wrong. If you want to go and hear it for yourself, this whole discussion is available probably on YouTube right freaking now. But yeah, the idea basically of what he was saying is that there's a mythic quality to Michael Myers in the first and second movie, and the fact that he can't really be killed. He's like this monster that doesn't die, and there's something about that he felt was kind of lost in the Rob Zombie movies, and quite frankly, I just disagree. I disagree on all fronts, because it's there. It's very clearly there, and I don't understand why people can't see that. I feel like the sense of what John Carpenter is saying about these movies is that less is more. That's the overarching theme that he's trying to advance here. And he feels like with his movies, he did more with less. And I think that he has a point with that. I think that's absolutely on point. Very true. John Carpenter's Halloween is a staple in the slasher genre, or subgenre, I should say, for a reason. It's one of the most important horror movies of all time. And he absolutely did do more with less. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't add something more to what he did and make something somewhat different that is still honoring and respecting what was already done in such a way that it actually maybe not makes it better per se, but it in some ways improves upon the story that was already told. And I feel like Rob Zombie's Halloween actually absolutely does that. And I know I'm going to get a lynch mob coming after me for saying that, but it's fucking true. The first movie starts out by explaining the backstory of Michael Myers, talking about what his family was like when he was a kid, and it kind of changes things up a bit, because in the first movie he's kind of coming from somewhat of a loving family, and it's kind of a freak thing that he just out of nowhere becomes this psychopath killer, right? So in this new series, in the new Rob Zombie movies, they kind of try to actually explain that in some ways by having him come from a somewhat broken home, from a trailer park kind of a home situation going on there. Really bad home life. But even so, it's clear that, like, it's not necessarily the people that he's around that makes him who he is, because the people that he's around don't even notice that he's getting into these kind of things like killing animals and stuff like that. That's what I think they're kind of trying to drive at with these movies, with this first movie at least, is that his entire family doesn't even realize that this is happening. They aren't recognizing that this is happening. And I feel like that's a huge problem in American society today, actually. When I see Michael Myers up on that screen in the Rob Zombie Halloween, I see the prototype for a homegrown terrorist. Somebody who would try to do something like Columbine nowadays. That's almost what I see, is like a commentary on the kind of killers that we see in modern day life. Like the school shootings and all that shit that we start seeing nowadays, right? I think that in these Rob Zombie Halloween movies, even though they came out like 10 years ago now, right? Even then, we were still starting to see a lot of these things happening that started happening after and around the same time as the Columbine shooting. And, you know, it just kind of kept getting worse and worse and worse after that. And where did that come from? Well, by the time that Rob Zombie's Halloween comes out, Gus Van Sant's Elephant has already come out. And Gus Van Sant's Elephant, kind of deals with that subject in a very direct approach, a very direct manner, a very disturbing manner, in which you actually see the killers who are actually doing this, and they actually come from fairly normal fucking homes, right? And you're actually seeing they have loving parents, and they have a loving family, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with their home life, but they still end up being these completely evil, horrible people, right? And you're just sitting here wondering how, why, what the fuck, right? Well, one of the things that you see in that is that the parents aren't recognizing it either. The parents aren't noticing that there's something going on with their sons. They aren't paying close enough attention to their kids. They're not noticing that there's something wrong in the state of whatever, that they're not noticing the problem. And that's a huge problem. In the United States, when it comes to mental disorders, when it comes to any kind of disorder, any kind of huge issue, mentally speaking, we kind of try to ignore it, or try to tell people who have those problems to ignore them, or to hide them, or don't talk about them, or we chastise them for it by calling them, sissies or something like that, for not being able to take normal life or whatever, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff is very real. These mental disorders are very real. They cause very real issues. They cause people to become the kind of killers that we are seeing popping up all over the place in real life today. And that problem very much, and I'm not saying in total, but very much comes from the lack of attention that is being paid to that, and the amount of American families that choose to ignore that kind of problem rather than actually do something about it. And part of that ignorance, part of that ignoring of it, comes in the form of taking pills rather than actually trying to do something about it. So in this first Halloween movie, what we see, I think, is kind of like, it's at the very beginning, it's telling us like the genesis of Michael Myers as a serial killer, right? It's telling us how he got to where he is as a serial killer later on in the movie. Because, of course, this is not a spoiler, we're going to have Michael Myers becoming a serial killer. But it's earlier on, so that means it could be set like in the 90s probably. It looks like it's probably supposed to be set in the 90s or something like that. There's nothing explicitly stating what date it is, and there's nothing that necessarily dates the film, I don't feel like, at least, that makes it feel like it's too new or too old for that, for what we're seeing in the film at that time period in the film. But there's also nothing that really stands out as being a place marker, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, because it's a bad thing in that you can't really tell what time period it's supposed to be. It's a good thing in that it's not overly blatant and thrown in your face, like, hey, this is the 70s, or hey, this is the 80s, like, I know that's not the best way of putting it, but it's not like everybody's wearing bell bottoms or suddenly has afros or something like that. It makes sense. What you're seeing on film makes sense in the context of like sometime in the last 20 to 30 years. You don't know exactly when, though. So I think it's effective in kind of keeping you guessing, but at the same time, it's just like, it's neither a good nor a bad thing about the movie. But again, the main issue, the main point I want to get across here is this idea of the family not paying attention, because his family is not paying attention to what's going on with him. They are not noticing that he has been killing animals and all this stuff, and in America, actually, a lot of young people are in areas and have families who will actually take them out hunting, where the goal is to actually start killing animals for no reason. So, in those areas, you wonder why maybe somebody comes from that area, goes on a murderous rampage or something like that. It's it's a convenient breeding ground for that kind of thing, because those are also typically the areas where parents are going to be less likely to accept that their child has some kind of a mental disorder or a problem that they need to go see a doctor about. And even if they do go to see a doctor, there's always a chance that that doctor's just going to prescribe them some medicine and lead them down the road again, like just not give a fuck. So I really like that aspect of this character, because it adds more to this Michael Myers. There's something more to this Michael Myers. He has more depth, and he says more about the society that he's in than the original Michael Myers. The original Michael Myers is great. It's a great concept, it's a great story, and it's simplistic, but that's just it. Just because something is simple and works doesn't mean that you can't improve upon it and make it better in some ways. It doesn't mean that any attempt to improve upon the simplicity is necessarily a bad thing, which it seems like a lot of people think it is, or feel like it is, which is, to me, just batshit insane. Like, no, they're improving upon the character. They're adding depth to the character. I don't see how that's a problem. I think it's fucking awesome. It makes me actually care for the character and care for the people who are being affected as a result of the negligence that he's experiencing. And it's not necessarily even negligence that is purposeful in any way. It's just that that family doesn't know better. And most American families don't know better. So that's kind of the commentary that you're getting from that kind of stuff. And the mere fact that they've got that kind of subtext in this movie, I mean, that's pretty powerful stuff, pretty significant stuff, pretty damn good stuff. Most horror remakes do not have that kind of level of subtext. And most horror movies nowadays do not have that level of subtext. So that alone makes these movies quite fucking good, just on that base level. People may not like it, people may not have wanted to see that in these movies, but tough shit, it's in there, and it's actually good, and it makes the movie better for having it in there. So that's my opinion, and I'm giving you my reasons for my opinion. Take them as you will. But yeah, that's the majority of the reason that I like at least the first Halloween movie. I also love Brad Dourif. He is an amazing actor as always. You also get Danny Trejo in there. Danny Trejo is a great character actor as well. You've got so many amazing character actors in that movie, and it just works so well. And I really love that Halloween for a lot of different reasons. And I feel like they improve upon the formula in a significant way that isn't necessarily making it... I keep using the word improve, and it does improve upon the formula, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's better than Halloween, than the original Halloween. It's not like I'm saying that this is way better than the original Halloween. I'm just saying that in terms of that particular aspect of the film, that particular aspect of the film is way better. There are a lot of things that John Carpenter did in his movie that are 10 billion times better than what you see in Rob Zombie's Halloween movies. Like, for instance, the way that the movie is shot, the way that Halloween, the original, is shot, is way fucking better than the way that the new Halloween movie is shot. But, to be fair, there are a lot of great shots in the Rob Zombie's Halloween. So, it's not like the cinematography in Rob Zombie's Halloween is necessarily bad either. It's actually really good in a lot of cases, but in other cases it's kind of meh. It just seems like sometimes they get these really good shots and they have a vision for what they want to do, and other times they just don't know what they want to do with that shot, so they go with whatever they can. And I guess that makes it feel a little bit jumbled in terms of just how it's shot, but when those shots are good, they are gorgeous. So I can't complain that much, because it's like, at least we get a few really gorgeous shots in there. But I would have to say that's one area where I feel like John Carpenter's Halloween is infinitely better than Rob Zombie's Halloween. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Rob Zombie's Halloween is crap. It's very good. I would give it probably a 7 out of 10. It's... I don't have it on Blu-ray yet even. I watched it on Amazon Instant Video because I have Amazon Prime. So I just watched it that way because it made it easier to do it. And that way I didn't have to pay fucking $10 for the Blu-ray when it's like a 7-star movie for me, and I don't really want to pay $10 for a 7-star movie. I'd rather pay something like, well, $6 or $7 for it, quite frankly. And for something that's been out this fucking long, you'd think that it would be on sale, especially during Halloween time, but nope. Still $10. One of these days I'm going to find it for a decent price. I'm going to pick it up. But I do have, and I did pick up for a decent price recently, I think it was a couple years ago, Halloween 2, the unrated director's cut. And yes, this is, honestly, I feel like it's better than the original Halloween from Rob Zombie. It's better in a lot of ways, because they take the mythic quality to the nth degree. They take it to the next level. And that's the thing, right? John Carpenter was saying that they kind of took all the mythology and the mysticism out of the Halloween franchise with Rob Zombie's Halloween movie. I disagree, because if you look at this movie, it's filled with mythology. It's filled with mysticism. It's everywhere. You see the white horse everywhere. What do you think that fucking represents? I mean, that is absolutely straight out of fucking mythology, people. And they kind of have science clashing with mythology in this movie and in the original movie, in the first movie. Because you've got this kind of creature in Michael Myers who represents that force of nature still, that isn't really explained, and somehow manages to keep getting up after he gets knocked down. But Loomis keeps trying to come at it from the perspective of a scientist. He keeps trying to come at it from the perspective of somebody who is, more scientifically minded, of a doctor or something like that. And eventually he gives up and relents and becomes kind of a crazy, kooky kind of a character by the end of it, which is exactly what happened in the original movie, I might add. And there's so many nods as well, just in the way that the first Rob Zombie Halloween movie is shot. There are so many nods to the John Carpenter movie. I know I'm holding this up and talking about the original one still, but yeah, those nods get carried over into Halloween 2 as well. And there's so many freaking wonderful scenes in this movie, and so many wonderful shots. And again, it's kind of muddled in terms of some of the shots are really beautiful and wonderful, and others are not so beautiful and wonderful. Sometimes they know exactly what they want to go for, and sometimes they're just not quite sure what they want to go for. But either way, the story in this one it solidifies the fact that there's more to these characters than there were even in the original Halloween movies from John Carpenter and co. So I don't see why there's all this hate. Brad Dourif, especially in this movie, is so fucking good. He is so... When there's a particular scene, I'm not going to give away, but there's a scene where he comes across something that just... His character comes across something that just destroys him, and his reaction is just spot on. It feels so goddamn real because he's such a good actor and he emotes so freaking well. I love Brad Dourif and everything he does, but this might even be my favorite role that he's ever done here in Halloween 2 because he does it so goddamn well. And yes, it's kind of a bit role per se. He's not in it for a whole lot. He's in it for maybe 5-10 minutes of the movie, but every scene he's in, he just chews up the scenery. He's just freaking fantastic every step of the way. And yeah, I mean, this one takes the mythology to a whole new level, but it also amps up on the violence factor, on the gore factor, on the brutality factor, which again is something that is, I feel like, calling back to the original Halloween 2. That's exactly what happened in Halloween 2. the original Halloween 2. They really amped things up. They made it a lot more gory. They made it more of like a traditional slasher. There was more blood. There was more makeup work. There was more of this sense of just utter destruction happening and a beast that could not be killed, right? And that is exactly what you see in this movie as well. This movie calls back to that in so many different ways, at so many different moments. And it's so good because you get to see all of that and the brutality of it all. Unlike other slasher movies where the slasher spends maybe a few seconds doing the killing and then you see the dead body or the dead face or whatever the heck they're going to show you of it, and then that scene's over, right? This movie draws it out, which makes it way more freaking brutal. They draw out those scenes to the point where it's just like you are seeing this gore, you are seeing this horrific scene so many different ways, so many different times for so freaking long that it really just is gut-wrenching. It'll make you recoil in horror, which is exactly what a horror movie should do. It really does add that flavor to the film series, well, the duology rather. And there are so many moments I can think of, but there's one, I don't want to give anything away because if you haven't seen it, then I'm not going to give anything away. Okay, I was gonna say something, but no, just trust me when I say that they have amped up on that brutality factor so far that you will literally recoil at some of the stuff that happens in this movie because it is so goddamn disgusting and horrific and wrong. And I don't mean wrong as in a sense of like they shouldn't have done that, but more in a sense of that was a really effective scare. That was a really effective disgust scene. That was really effective how they did it. They were really effective creep outs in this movie, and I absolutely loved them. And I also loved the development of the characters because in this one, Loomis kind of takes from his experience in the first movie where he starts out as a scientist who's more scientifically minded, kind of gets driven a little bit mad by the fact that Michael Myers gets out and he's got this kind of a god complex to him in a lot of ways. His ego is boosted so goddamn much that he feels like he can take on Michael Myers on himself and stop him from committing these terrible atrocities, which again is something that you see in the Loomis character from the original films. But when you see him in this one, it's just to the nth degree. His ego has gotten completely out of control. The God complex is just completely out there on the surface for everybody to see. People are getting to the point of almost making fun of him. He's become so egotistical and disgusting of a character. And in the end, he ends up doing something really fucking stupid that he deserves. What happens to him, he deserves. But it's just one of those things that, of course, he would do something like that because he thinks he can take on anybody because he's so goddamn egotistical. He literally compares himself to fucking God, I think, at one point in this movie. So, yeah, need I say more? I think not on that character. But I like the development because he starts out one way. He eventually, slowly, in a way that makes sense, develops into another character, and in this one, that character gets developed even further into a nut job, wacko, egotistical, god complex motherfucker. And it's a natural progression that I feel like is really fucking cool to see. And then you've also got Laurie Strode's character, which develops in quite an interesting way. In the first movie, she's kind of just a normal teenage girl, but the experiences she goes through actually changes her in a lot of significant ways. She becomes more of an outsider. She feels more like an outsider, and she starts getting into a different kind of lifestyle, really. And that's exactly what you would see from an actual person who was actually put through something like that. That's, I think, why I like these movies, is because they actually try to show you the side of these characters and these stories that could actually be real. And that's what makes it even more effective of a scare to me, is the mere fact that everything you're seeing could be real. It has the power to be fucking real and disturbing as fuck, and it is so goddamn disturbing. And I just love it for that, because anytime you can make a horror movie that feels real and hits true, and it feels true and hits close to home, and feels like something that could actually happen, maybe not in your neighborhood, but in a neighborhood near you, you've done an effective and good job of making a horror movie, because that's the point at which people start going, ugh, you know, like that could actually fucking happen. And maybe the whole aspect of them being almost supernatural characters in these movies, with the mythology, which is fucking there, I might add. Maybe that isn't something that you would see, but they also kind of try to explain some of the mythology away by showing how it could just be like a psychological thing that they're all experiencing. And for all we know, that psychological thing that they're experiencing is a genetic thing, and it seems like it's a genetic thing. And they don't go to the lengths of explaining whether or not it is. They leave that open to interpretation. So I like that aspect of it, because then people can't complain that, oh, they're just trying to say that it's psychological and nothing's actually happening, so there's no mythology to it. Well, no, they leave it open to interpretation, so you can interpret that however you want to. If that's the way you want to interpret it, then go for it, but you can also interpret it as being a mythological thing, a mystical thing. So, yeah, I mean, there's so much that I really love about these movies, so I don't get why people like John Carpenter maybe wouldn't like them as much. I don't get why a lot of horror fans don't like them as much. And John Carpenter himself, in that same interview where he talked shit about Rob Zombie, said that he told Rob Zombie to make the movie that he wanted to make it his movie. Don't worry about staying too true to the original source material, which he did in a lot of ways anyways. But he said, don't worry about trying to do that, just make the movie yours. So, in my eyes, if John Carpenter is telling Rob Zombie to make the movie his, and Rob Zombie very obviously did that with Halloween 1 and 2 here, then I don't see what the problem is. John Carpenter gave him free rein to do that. He did that, and it was very good. What we got as a result was very good, and I don't think actually many of you would be able to deny that it was way better than most of the horror remakes we see. So, please, stop hating on the Rob Zombie Halloween movies. They are actually way better than most people give them credit for, and you really need to give them a chance. They really deserve. If you haven't seen them more than one time, and the last time you saw them in theaters, they really deserve a second chance. Especially watch the unrated director's cut of the first and the second one, because those include so much more footage. They're completely different films. The theatrical cuts did not do them justice. You need to see the full unedited film in order to really appreciate what you're getting out of it. So that, I think, is about all I'm going to say about the Rob Zombie Halloween movies. But I think I've said a frickin' mouthful at this point. So, yeah, I guess happy Halloween, guys. I hope you don't hate me for liking the Rob Zombie movies. I hope you can at least kind of see where I'm coming from with my perspective here and appreciate that in some small way. Appreciate my perspective. And if you don't, well, that's cool too. Whatever. You don't have to agree with me. I'm not necessarily right just because I say something. But, you know, I tried to provide some evidence, some context from within the film and the way the film was made to explain why I feel the way I do, and some context, of course, from John Carpenter himself. So, yeah, I don't know. I've tried my best to sway you into watching these movies again if you didn't like them, and, well, hopefully that worked, but if it didn't, whatever. I'm just trying to say these are actually really good movies. I believe these are really good movies, and they need to be given more of a chance than they have been given so far. So, yeah. Anyways, that'll do it for today, and that'll do it for my Halloween month of horror. So, yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed that. If you didn't get a chance to watch everything, and or you didn't see everything that I got posted, I posted 5 videos a week over the entire month of October. And if you missed something and you go back and just go back and take a look and see if there's anything you'd actually be interested in seeing that you didn't notice the first time around, or for whatever reason YouTube decided not to actually show it to you, you know. Sometimes YouTube does that because they're dicks. So, yeah, if for whatever reason you have missed something that I've done over the past month, then go ahead and go back and just check and see if it's something you would be interested in seeing, and yeah, hit it up. Otherwise, that'll do it from me and the month of horror. I've got a bunch of new videos coming this week, next week, and the week after that. And yes, I will be doing videos about the Black Friday sales going on at least Target, Best Buy, and Walmart. So, as I did last year, talking about all the Black Friday deals that you're going to be able to get on Blu-rays and whatnot, I'm going to be doing that again this year. So you can expect those to be coming around probably the second week of November. So yeah, maybe the third week. I'm not sure. Probably the third week, actually, because I think that's when they're all coming. But we'll see. It just depends on when they come out. And when they come out, that's when I'll do the videos. So, yeah. Anyways, that'll do it for me today. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you later. Peace.